Hey guys, thanks for coming back to Scuba Tech. Today we're going to talk about the Steel 72. Do we or don't we use these for scuba anymore? Well, some of you might have them, some of you might be using them. I'm going to show you which ones we can still use for scuba and which we should not. We're going to get started right now. Okay guys, some of these tanks I have here go back as far as the 1950s, 1953 to be exact. They start in the 50s to go through the 60s and into the 70s. These are the early scuba tanks, the first actual steel scuba tanks that we were using before aluminum was even invented. I'm going to show you each one of these. Okay guys, this tank here, you can start at the very top reading the actual first line is DOT 3AA 2250. That's Department of Transportation. 3AA is the type of steel it's made from. 2250 is its working pressure. The next group of numbers is the serial number. Then the line after that is January 1973. That's the date of manufacture. That's when this tank was put out into service, 1973. Next tank, DOT 3AA 2250, serial number, and then the manufacture date, May of 1971. This tank has a special coating on the outside. It's a vinyl coating. We're going to talk about that in more detail in a little bit. Here we have a Steel 72 with a born-on date of January 1961. Might be difficult to see, but it's right here, January, and then over here you have 6/1. That is the actual born-on date or the manufacturer date. I'm going to swing this around and show you something on the other side. On the opposite side of the tank, right here, you might have trouble seeing it. It's kind of faint. It says ICC 3AA 2250. ICC is Interstate Commerce Commission, which is the agency before DOT. We now have Department of Transportation or DOT markings on dive cylinders. Prior to the existence of Department of Transportation, it was known as ICC. This tank also has an exterior coating, which we're going to talk about with the vinyl coating on tanks. This one also ICC and original born-on date, May 1960. All right, now this tank is a very special tank, one of my favorites in my collection. It has a marking of U.S. Divers Corporation. The address under the U.S. Divers is 1045 Bronxton Avenue. If any of you guys know about early U.S. Divers, aka Aqualung, their first address was on Bronxton Avenue. That was back in the 1950s. They've had multiple addresses since then, but anything that has an address of Bronxton Avenue is the earliest of U.S. divers, and you can consider that probably the earliest of actually scuba diving. Let me swing this tank around, and we're going to get the actual date of manufacture. It's a heavy tank, a lot heavier than the others. I don't really think this is a 72 cubic foot tank. I'm not exactly sure what the cubic capacity of this tank is. Let me move my camera so you can see this a little bit better. Okay, top line ICC 3AA 3015. That is 3015 psi of working pressure. Serial number. Then you go down to the actual date of manufacture, December 1953. PST would be the manufacturer. 1953, I believe that is probably as early as scuba tanks get. Prior to that, the scuba industry was actually using military surplus oxygen tanks for their scuba tank. The valve on these tanks have a tapered threaded end, much like an MPT fitting or plumbing fitting, and Teflon. Let me remove this so you can take a look at it. You can see it's a tapered valve with Teflon. We no longer use this type of valve. Nowadays we're using straight threaded valves with O-ring seals. This is what we use nowadays. It's a straight threaded valve with O-ring seal. This is what your typical scuba set would look like in 1961. This is the old double hose regulator, and it also steel tank. And here you have a hard backpack with shoulder straps. Notice no BC jacket, no horse collar. This was before the day of the BC. As a matter of fact, this was before the day of the pressure gauge. Here there's a reserve valve on the tank. This reserve valve is connected to a bar that runs down to the lower side of the tank. When this tank was low on air, about 300 pounds, the spring that is inside this valve would close, and then the diver would have to reach behind him, grab this bar, and pull down, opening the reserve, knowing now I got 300 pounds, I got to get back to my boat. This tank is also pretty interesting. It has the 1/2-inch tapered tank valve. And then as we get a little closer look at the manufacture date, 1959. And if we swing around, we're going to look at the address on this tank is 11201. Let me zoom in. There it is. Pico Boulevard. Pico Boulevard was a Aqualung or U.S. Divers address after the Bronxton Avenue. And if you look at the regulator, on the regulator, it also says Pico Boulevard. So if the tank is 1959 on Pico Boulevard, we know that this regulator, also manufactured when they were at Pico Boulevard, is also from 1959. So this is a really early set of scuba gear. If you were a diver in 1959, this is what you were using. These 72s in the early 70s, they were experimenting with certain coatings. They would coat these with vinyl. This is a vinyl shell or coating on the exterior of the tank. They did them in yellow, and they also did it in a tan color. It looks good. It looks like, wow, what a cool finish. We don't test these anymore. They've been out on the service too long with this vinyl coating. If you see a tank that has an exterior vinyl coating, I wouldn't buy it. You'll probably see one in a garage sale somewhere, or somebody has one that they want to give to you. We won't hydro test them, and if you're a hydro tester, you shouldn't be testing these tanks anymore. Exterior vinyl coatings have been taken out of service. When I tell people we no longer test the vinyl coated tanks, they all ask, but why? The tank looks fine. What's the reason for not testing it? Let me knock the boot off and I'll show you. Around so you can see what's going on. Oh wow, look at that. Okay, that's a big old rust spot that was underneath the boot. Wasn't visible to you, me, or anyone looking at the tank. This is why we knocked the boots off. We want to see what's underneath the boot. This rust has been going on for some time. It's who knows how far up it's traveled the actual vinyl coating. The only way to know is to remove all the vinyl coating. Once you remove the vinyl coating from this tank, it is fully exposed to the elements and it will rust instantly. This is why we no longer test or service steel 72s with vinyl coating. The galvanized 72 is a better option. However, in the early 70s, they were also experimenting with vinyl coating on the interior of the 72s. This tank is a galvanized exterior, but it also has vinyl coating on the interior. When you find a tank that has vinyl coating on the interior, that is an absolute no-go, because the same thing that you saw on the yellow tank can be happening on the interior of this tank, and there's really no way to remove the internal vinyl coating. Let's take a look inside. Steel 72, should you use them? Sure, why not? If they pass hydro, they pass visual, they're fine. Stay away from the vinyl coated steels and you should be just fine. Guys, keep in mind your tank should be up to date with hydros and visuals. If you don't, anything can happen. Rust can occur inside the tank. If you skip a couple years from your visuals, the rust will accelerate. Guys, thanks for watching today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more videos coming. Thanks again.